The girl who chose freedom. Isla had always known that her life would never be easy, but she never imagined it would become a cage built by the very woman who claimed to raise her. After her father's death, everything familiar collapsed like a home losing its pillars. Cassandra, her stepmother, took control of the house, the finances, and most painfully, Isla's life. She changed the girl's world overnight. The warm kitchen where her father once cooked became off-limits. The living room where they used to laugh became a silent museum, untouched except by Cassandra's guests. And Isla herself, once a cheerful daughter, became little more than a servant inside her own home. Every morning began with the same sharp voice. "Isla, wake up! Don't make me come in there!" The girl would rise quietly, tie her hair into a simple knot, and complete her chores before sunrise. She washed dishes until her hands wrinkled, scrubbed floors until her knees ached, and ironed Cassandra's expensive dresses, purchased with the little money her father had left. Even then, Cassandra always found something to criticize. "You're slow, Isla. Useless. No wonder your father left us with nothing." Isla never responded. She pressed her lips together, held her tears, and reminded herself that kindness was not a weakness, no matter how loudly Cassandra mocked it. But kindness alone could not protect her from what came next. One evening, Cassandra called Isla to the dining room, a room the girl rarely entered unless she was serving food. A stranger sat at the table, an older man with cold, predatory eyes and a thin smile that made Isla's stomach twist. Cassandra rested a hand on his shoulder like he was a prized treasure. "Isla, this is Lord Raymond. He has made a generous offer for your hand in marriage." Isla froze. The shock was too sharp to process. "Marriage?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Cassandra nodded as if discussing something ordinary. "Yes, Lord Raymond is wealthy, powerful, and willing to take you despite your background." Isla understood what that meant. Despite being a servant, despite being unwanted, despite being under Cassandra's control. "No," she said before she even realized the word had escaped her lips. Cassandra's smile thinned into a dangerous line. "Excuse me? I said no," Isla repeated, a little louder this time. Her heart raced, but she stood straight. "I will not marry him." Lord Raymond's smirk vanished, replaced by irritation. Cassandra stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. "You ungrateful little brat. Do you think you have a choice? We are drowning in debt because of your father's foolishness. This marriage will save us." Isla shook her head, tears burning in her eyes, but her voice remained steady. "Father would never have wanted this." Cassandra slapped her so hard that Isla stumbled onto the floor. "Your father is dead, and you belong to me now. You will marry whoever I choose." Lord Raymond leaned back in his chair with a cruel smile, clearly enjoying the scene. "She'll obey eventually. Girls like her always do." Something inside Isla snapped, not a loud break, but a quiet, powerful shift. She realized that if she stayed even one more night, Cassandra would force her into that marriage. She would lose her life, her freedom, her dignity. She had no money, no friends, no support, but she still had one thing left, her will to survive.
That night, long after Cassandra locked her in her room, Isla sat on the edge of her narrow bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. Her cheeks still throbbed from the slap. She could hear Cassandra downstairs laughing with Lord Raymond as they planned her future like she was a piece of furniture. Tears streamed silently down her face, but she wiped them away. Crying would not save her. She waited until the house grew quiet. Then she opened her small wooden drawer and took out the only thing she still treasured: her father's final letter, her mother's old silver locket, and a tiny pouch containing the few coins she had secretly saved from tips given by kind strangers whenever Cassandra sent her to deliver goods. She folded everything carefully into a small cloth bag. Then she pushed open the window. The night wind was cold, brushing against her skin like a warning, but also like freedom calling her name. Isla climbed out, gripping the old vines on the wall. She moved quietly, like she had practiced many times in her dreams but never dared to attempt. Her feet touched the ground softly, and then she ran. The forest behind the house was dark and wild, but Isla preferred its danger over the certainty of Lord Raymond's cruelty. Branches scratched her arms as she pushed through them, roots tore at her bare feet, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Behind her, only minutes later, she heard shouts. Cassandra must have discovered her empty room. Find her. She can't have gone far. Isla pushed harder, her lungs burning. She knew Cassandra's men would search every path. She knew she had no place to go, but she also knew she would rather die in the woods than return home. Just when she thought she couldn't run any longer, she burst into a small clearing lit by silvery moonlight, and there, standing perfectly still in the center, was a man. He was unlike anyone she had ever seen. Tall, lean, dressed in a long dark coat that moved like smoke around him. His hair was black as midnight, falling over his pale forehead. But it was his eyes that rooted her in place. Cold, silver, ancient, like they had seen centuries pass. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched her with unsettling calm. Isla felt fear claw up her throat. She took a step back, unsure if this man was another danger sent by Cassandra. But then, distant shouts echoed again. They were getting closer, and for reasons she could not explain, her feet moved toward the mysterious stranger instead of away. "Please," she whispered, breathless, trembling. "I need help." The man tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he already knew the answer to. "You are running," he said, in a deep, smooth voice. "You smell of fear and desperation." Isla swallowed hard. "My stepmother wants to force me into marriage. I can't go back." The stranger stepped closer, and for the first time Isla noticed that his presence felt different, not just intimidating, but powerful, almost unnatural. "Tell me," he murmured, "what would you give to be free?" Isla's heart pounded. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know what he wanted, but she knew what waited behind her. Chains, control, misery. She whispered the only truth she had left. Anything. The man's lips curved into the faintest, most dangerous smile she had ever seen. "Then, little human, your fate is about to change."
The stranger's deadly offer. Isla stood frozen in the moonlit clearing, her breath shaking, her heart pounding so loudly she felt certain the whole forest could hear it. The silver-eyed stranger watched her with a calmness that felt almost unreal, as if he had all the time in the world while her life was collapsing around her. She could still hear Cassandra's men shouting somewhere behind her, their torches glowing like angry fireflies between the trees. The stranger didn't even turn toward the noise. He simply observed her with a strange intensity, like he already knew everything, her fear, her desperation, her past, her pain. Isla swallowed hard. "Please, if you can help me, I'll do anything." The man stepped forward so quietly he didn't make a single sound on the forest floor. His presence sent a cold shiver down her spine, not of fear, but of awareness, like she was standing in front of something powerful, something not entirely human. "Anything?" he repeated softly, tasting the word, as if it mattered more than she realized. Isla hesitated. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know what he wanted. But she knew one thing with painful clarity. Going back meant losing her life to Cassandra's cruelty. It meant chains disguised as marriage. It meant drowning in someone else's control. So she nodded. "Yes, anything for freedom." The stranger exhaled a slow breath, almost amused. "Very well," he said, lifting his hand toward her. "Then marry me." Isla's body stiffened. The world seemed to tilt. "What?" she whispered, unable to believe what he had just said. He stepped closer, and the moonlight caught on the sharp angle of his jaw, the unnatural pallor of his skin. "Marry me," he repeated, calm, certain. "Here, tonight, in this sacred grove." Isla backed up a step, confused and frightened. "I don't even know you." The man tilted his head slightly, like her protest was fascinating to him. "You asked for freedom. I can give it to you, but every freedom has a price." Isla shook her head quickly. "Marriage? With a stranger?" She almost laughed from the absurdity, but nothing about him felt humorous. He didn't blink. "If you return to your stepmother, you will be forced into a marriage worse than death. The man she chose for you, I know of his kind." Isla froze. "You know Raymond?" The man nodded slowly. "I know the scent of cruelty when it poisons the air." His voice lowered, almost dangerous. "He would break you within days." Isla shivered. Every instinct told her to run, yet her heart told her something different, that this was her only chance to escape. "Why me? You don't even know who I am." The stranger smiled faintly, though it wasn't a warm smile. "I know enough. I know you are desperate. I know you are trapped. And," his eyes lowered to her trembling hands, "I know you have a pure heart. Those are rare." Isla's breath caught. No one had ever called her pure-hearted. To Cassandra, she was a burden. To Raymond, she was property. But this stranger, this terrifying, beautiful stranger, said it like a truth carved into stone. Behind them, torches flashed closer. The men were almost there. Isla panicked. "They're coming. Please, please just help me escape." The man extended his hand once more. "Then bind yourself to me with marriage. Only then can I take you away from here. Only then will you be protected under my name." Isla stared at his offered hand. She thought of her father's soft voice telling her she deserved safety. She thought of Cassandra's slap burning her cheek. She thought of Raymond's wicked smile. And for the first time in her life, she made a decision that belonged only to her. Slowly, she placed her shaking hand in his. I accept." The stranger's silver eyes glowed faintly, like moonlight brightening in a mirror. He raised her hand gently, almost ceremonially, and from his coat he pulled out a small silver blade, thin and sharp as a needle. Isla's breath hitched. "What are you doing?" "A marriage must be witnessed," he murmured, "not by mortals, but by the old forces that rule these woods." Before she could respond, he drew the blade across his palm. Dark, shimmering blood welled on his skin, thicker than human blood, almost glowing under the moon. Isla gasped, taking a step back, but he caught her wrist with surprising gentleness. "Do not fear," he said. "This will hurt only a moment." He sliced her palm lightly. Pain shot up her arm, quick and sharp. Their blood dripped and met in the center of their joined hands. The moment the two drops touched, Isla felt a rush like lightning crawling under her skin. The air around them trembled. The forest seemed to fall silent. Even the shouts of Cassandra's men faded as if swallowed by darkness. The stranger spoke in a language Isla didn't know, ancient, thick, echoing. The wind swirled around them, bending the branches like they were bowing. "By blood and moon," he intoned, "by shadow and oath, I bind myself to you." Isla's heart pounded. She could barely breathe. He tightened his hold on her hand. "Do you accept me as your husband, Isla?" His voice rang with a terrifying authority. Isla trembled, whether with fear or destiny she didn't know. I do." The moment she spoke, shadows rose from the ground like living mist, curling around their feet, their joined hands, their faces. The air cracked with power. The stranger closed his eyes and whispered the final words of the vow. "Then you are mine, and I am yours. Let no mortal force break what darkness has sealed." A wave of icy energy shot through Isla's chest. She gasped and collapsed forward, but the stranger caught her before she hit the ground. Her vision blurred, her strength drained. What's happening to me?" she whispered, trembling. His voice softened in a way she didn't expect. "You are crossing worlds, little one. My world." His arms wrapped around her as if she weighed nothing. The trees around them seemed to melt into shadows. The ground vanished. The forest dissolved into darkness so thick it felt like velvet. Isla clung to his coat, terrified but unable to fight. Who are you?" she whispered weakly. His lips brushed her ear, his voice low and ancient. Lucian, he said. Lucian Nightborn. The name felt like a spell. Her heartbeat slowed. Her body grew cold. "And what are you?" she asked, barely able to speak. Lucian's grip tightened around her trembling form. "You will know soon enough, my little wife." The world went black.
The realm beneath shadows. Isla woke slowly, as if rising from the bottom of a deep, dark ocean where dreams and nightmares blended together. Her eyelids felt heavy, her body strangely weightless, and her breath came out in shaky whispers. When she finally opened her eyes, she expected trees, moonlight, the smell of damp soil, anything familiar. But what greeted her stole her breath entirely. She was lying on a giant bed made of carved black stone, softened by layers of silk blankets that shimmered like liquid midnight. Above her, a ceiling arched impossibly high, covered in glowing crystal veins that pulsed with gentle blue light, as if the walls themselves were breathing. Strange symbols carved into the pillars shifted and glimmered whenever she blinked, almost alive. Isla sat up too fast, dizziness washing over her like cold water. Where am I?" she whispered, but her voice sounded small in the vast chamber. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed, expecting the floor to be cold stone, yet instead it felt warm beneath her bare feet, like it was responding to her touch. The air itself carried a scent she had never known before, a mixture of rain, burning incense, and something ancient, metallic, and powerful. Confused and frightened, she took a hesitant step forward, noticing her clothes had changed. She was no longer wearing her torn forest dress. Instead, she wore a soft gown made of dark blue fabric, smooth as water, and embroidered with silver threads that formed shapes she couldn't identify. She pressed a hand to her forehead, trying to steady her racing thoughts. Before she could gather her nerves, the massive double doors in the room opened silently, without a single sound. A tall figure entered, Lucian. But he did not look like the man she had seen in the forest. There he had worn a simple black coat, mysterious and dangerous. Here he looked like royalty born of darkness. He wore a fitted black jacket embroidered with silver markings similar to those on the walls, leather boots that made no sound, and a cloak made from shadows themselves, trailing behind him like smoke. His silver eyes glowed brighter in this place, sharp and ancient. Isla backed up instinctively until her back hit one of the stone pillars. Lucian stopped several steps away from her, his expression unreadable. "You're awake," he said in a calm tone, though his voice carried through the vast room like a command. "Good. We have much to discuss." Isla pressed her hand to her chest, trying to steady her breathing. Where am I? What is this place?" Lucian stepped closer, his presence filling the air around her with quiet tension. "This is Umberreef, the realm beneath the mortal world, my kingdom." Isla stared at him, her mind refusing to comprehend. Your kingdom? Realm beneath? What does that mean?" Lucian's gaze softened a fraction. "It means you are no longer in your world. You crossed into mine when we completed the blood vow." Isla's heart raced. "Are you saying I left my world? Just like that?" Lucian nodded. "You asked for freedom. I granted it." Isla felt the room spin. "Freedom? You call this freedom? I don't even know where I am. I don't know who you really are." Her voice cracked with panic. Lucian watched her with an emotion she couldn't read, something between patience and something darker. "I told you my name," he said, stepping even closer. "Lucian Nightborn."
Isla shook her head fiercely. That's not enough. What are you? Lucian held her gaze, shadows flickering around him like living creatures drawn to his presence. When he spoke, his voice dropped to a deeper, colder tone. I am the king of the bloodborn, ruler of the Umbereth, sovereign of those who dwell in shadow. In your language, he paused, silver eyes glowing brighter, I am a vampire. The words seemed to echo through the room, bouncing off crystal walls, sinking into Isla's bones. Her breath caught painfully in her throat. A vampire? She repeated, barely able to speak. Lucian nodded once, slowly, as if revealing a truth she'd eventually discover anyway. Isla pressed herself harder against the pillar, shaking her head. No, that's impossible. Vampires aren't real. Lucian's lips curved in a faint, humorless smile. Mortals believe many things are myths simply because they are blind to what lies beneath their feet. Isla's legs trembled, her lungs tight. Why bring me here? Why marry me? She cried. Did you trick me? Lucian's eyes darkened. I did not trick you. I offered you a choice. You accepted. Because I thought you were human, she cried. I thought you were helping me escape Cassandra and Raymond, not dragging me into this. Lucian stepped forward, closing the last remaining space between them. Isla gasped as he placed one hand lightly against the pillar beside her head, his face inches from hers. His presence felt overwhelming, cold and warm all at once. Look at me, he murmured. She forced herself to meet his gaze. I did not drag you, he continued quietly. I saved you from a fate far worse than anything here. Isla clenched her fists, tears burning her eyes. I didn't ask to be your wife. Lucian's jaw tightened. For the first time, Isla saw something flicker in his expression. Hurt? Frustration? She couldn't tell. No, he said softly, but you chose it. If you had refused, I would have let you walk away, even if it meant death in the forest. Shock washed over Isla. He would have let her die? He read her expression easily. I do not force bonds, but once accepted, they cannot be broken. Isla's breathing grew shallow. So I'm trapped, just like before, another prison. Lucian's eyes flashed with something fierce. No, he said, voice like steel. Not a prison, a throne. Isla stared at him, confused. He stepped back finally, giving her space. In Umbereth, a king's wife becomes queen. You have protection, authority, and power now. No one here will harm you. Isla laughed bitterly. Except you? Lucian froze. Something sharp flickered across his face. Pain? Guilt? Anger? She couldn't tell. I will never harm you, he said quietly. Not in my darkest hunger. His words hung heavily in the air, and Isla realized something important. Lucian was dangerous, yes, but he was not heartless, and that made him even more frightening. Lucian gestured toward the giant door. Come, you must see the truth of this realm. Only then will you understand what you agreed to. Isla hesitated, her heart torn between fear and an odd, fragile trust. Then she followed him, stepping out of the chamber and into the unfamiliar shadows of a world she never knew existed.
The truth of blood and shadows. Isla followed Lucian down a long hallway carved from shimmering black stone, each wall glowing with faint blue veins of light that pulsed softly like a heartbeat. The air was cool but not unpleasant, carrying that same strange scent, ancient, metallic, and enchanting. As they walked, she noticed the ceilings were impossibly high, with twisting pillars that seemed alive, shifting ever so slightly when she blinked. The ground beneath her feet was smooth like marble, but warm, as if the realm itself was breathing. Despite her fear, she couldn't stop looking around in awe. This place was nothing like her world. It was darker, yes, but also beautiful, almost sacred.
But that beauty terrified her because she didn't understand it. At last, they reached a balcony carved into the side of a massive cavern. When she stepped forward, the sight stole her breath completely. Below her lay an entire kingdom hidden beneath the earth. Tall obsidian towers, bridges made of light, rivers of glowing crimson energy flowing like blood turned into liquid fire. The sky above wasn't a sky at all, but a dome of swirling shadows dotted with floating crystals that glowed like false stars. Hundreds of figures moved through the city, tall, pale, graceful, draped in dark clothing. They looked human, but too perfect, too smooth in their movements, too sharp in their eyes. Vampires. The word still sent a shiver through her. Lucian watched her reaction closely. "This is Umbereth," he said softly. "My people. My world." Isla swallowed hard, gripping the railing to steady herself. "It's huge," she whispered. "Beautiful, but terrifying." Lucian nodded. "It was built long before your mortal kingdoms, long before your history even began." Isla turned to him. "So you've lived. How long?" Lucian looked at the shadowy dome above them. 3 centuries, he said simply. Isla's breath caught. 300 years. How can someone live that long? Lucian's lips twitched into a faint smile. Vampires do not live. We exist. Isla hugged her arms around herself, overwhelmed. "Why did you bring me here? Why make me your wife?" Lucian stepped closer, but this time he moved slowly, cautiously, as if he didn't want to frighten her. "Because your world would have killed you. Because I saw your fear, your strength, your refusal to bow to cruelty." His voice softened, almost surprisingly. "That is the heart of a queen." Isla shook her head. "I'm no queen. I'm just a girl who ran away." "You are more," Lucian murmured, "even if you do not see it yet." A distant clatter broke the tension. Isla flinched as a young vampire servant rushed toward them, stopping instantly when he saw Lucian. The boy bowed so fast his forehead nearly touched the ground. "Your Majesty, forgive the interruption. The council awaits your orders. And whispers have already begun, sire, about the human." Lucian's gaze darkened. "Let them whisper. They will learn soon enough." The servant ran off. Isla turned to Lucian, fear creeping back into her chest. "They don't want me here, do they?" Lucian's jaw hardened. "They want what they always want. Power, purity, dominance. A human bride threatens their traditions." Isla's heart dropped. "So they'll hate me." Lucian looked at her, expression unreadable. "Some. But hatred is a weak weapon when it meets truth." Isla stared at the kingdom again, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't belong in your world." Lucian stepped behind her, just close enough that she felt the warmth of his presence. "You belong where you are safe," he murmured. "You belong where no one can touch you. Not hunters, not your stepmother, not the man she tried to sell you to." His voice carried a dangerous promise. "If Raymond ever comes near you again, he will regret drawing breath." Isla shivered, not from fear, but from a strange protective warmth that wrapped around her like a cloak. She turned to face him, her eyes uncertain. "Lucian, what exactly happens now? What does it mean to be your wife?" Lucian held her gaze for a long moment before answering. "Here, marriage is not a contract," he said. "It is a binding of souls, a shield, a vow, A shared power. He paused, studying her face carefully. But I will never force you to act as my wife, unless you choose to. Isla blinked, surprised. Then why bind me at all? Lucien's eyes softened with an emotion she couldn't quite name. Because I needed to protect you quickly, he said quietly. And because... He looked away, as if uncertain whether to speak the truth. Because the moment I saw you in the forest, something old awakened in me. Something I thought had died centuries ago. Isla's heart skipped. She didn't dare ask what that something was. Before she could speak, cold wind swept across the balcony. Shadows thickened near the stairs. A group of tall figures emerged, vampires draped in dark ceremonial clothing, their expressions cold and proud. Lucien's shoulders tensed. "The council," he said under his breath. The tallest of them, a woman with silver hair and severe features, stepped forward. Her eyes scanned Isla with open disgust. "A human? In the royal chambers? In the king's presence?" Another vampire, tall and sharp-featured, sneered. "Have you lost all reason, Lucien? Bringing prey into our sacred halls?" Isla backed up instinctively, fear clawing at her throat. Lucien stepped in front of her like a shield, his voice dropping into a tone that froze the air. "She is not prey." His silver eyes glowed dangerously. "She is my wife." Gasps rippled through the council. The silver-haired woman looked horrified. "You performed the blood vow with a mortal? Do you realize what you've done?" Lucien's voice became ice. "I have done what I chose to do." The sharp-featured man snarled. "She is fragile, weak. She will corrupt the throne. She is unworthy." Isla flinched, but Lucien moved so fast the wind screamed. In a blink, he was inches from the man, gripping his throat. "Say unworthy again, and I will show you what true weakness looks like." The councilman froze in terror. Isla stared, stunned by how quickly Lucien turned lethal. Slowly, Lucien released him and stepped back. When he returned to Isla's side, his voice softened. "No one touches you," he murmured, loud enough for the council to hear. "No one threatens you, not while I breathe." The council left in furious silence. When they were alone again, Isla exhaled shakily. "Lucien, they hate me." He turned to her. "They fear what you represent." Isla frowned. "And what is that?" Lucien stepped closer, his voice lower, warmer. "Change, and light in a kingdom built on shadows." Isla didn't know whether to feel afraid or honored. She looked at him quietly. "Lucien, what if I disappoint you? What if I can't survive in your world?" He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he touched her cheek gently, his cold fingertips a strange comfort. "You survived cruelty. You survived fear. You survived a life designed to break you." His voice dropped to a soft whisper. "You will survive this too, Isla. Not because you belong to me, but because you are strong." Tears filled her eyes, not of fear, but of something unfamiliar. Hope. Lucien let his hand fall, stepping back with controlled calm. "Come," he said softly. "Your new life begins now." Isla followed him, her heart unsure, her steps uncertain, yet for the first time she felt like she was walking towards something instead of running from it. The hunters arrive, and two worlds collide. Days passed in the shadowed kingdom of Umbereth, and although Isla tried to adjust to her new life, she could not shake the feeling of being watched. She could feel eyes on her whenever she walked through the grand hallways, some filled with curiosity, some with resentment, and some with pure hatred. Whispered voices followed her everywhere. "A human, the king chose a human. Disgraceful, she'll bring ruin to the bloodborn." But every time the whispers tightened around her heart, she remembered Lucian standing between her and the council, defending her with a fury that shook even the strongest vampires. It comforted her more than she wanted to admit. Still, Isla kept to herself, avoiding unnecessary attention. She spent most of her time wandering quiet corridors, learning the paths of the underground kingdom. What fascinated her most were the servants, humble vampires who lived simple lives and worked tirelessly. Unlike the council, many of them did not look at her with hostility. Some were even shyly kind. One evening, as she walked near the lower halls, she found a young servant girl, no older than 10, crying and nursing a wound on her arm. Without thinking, Isla rushed to her side and knelt. "Hey, what happened?" The little girl hesitated, glancing around fearfully. I dropped a glass while serving the council. They get angry when servants make mistakes." Isla felt her chest tighten. Gently, she tore a piece of her gown and wrapped the girl's arm. "No one should hurt you for an accident." The girl's eyes widened in surprise. But you're the queen." Isla shook her head. "I'm just a human trying to help." Word spread quickly. The human queen helped a servant child. Some were disgusted. Some were shocked. But some softened. While Isla tried to find her place, far above the surface a storm brewed. Cassandra, furious at Isla's escape, had spent days searching forests, villages, and even abandoned roads. Lord Raymond, the man that she had hoped to marry her off to, seethed with humiliation. "She ran," he growled to Cassandra. "After everything I did for you, she dared to run from me?" Cassandra clenched her jaw. "We will find her. I don't care if she's halfway across the world." But their search turned desperate when they discovered a trail of blood and strange scorch marks near the forest clearing where Isla disappeared. A traveler from a nearby town approached them with fear in his eyes. I saw something that night, a man with silver eyes and shadows moving like smoke." Ramon froze. Cassandra narrowed her eyes. "What are you talking about?" The traveler made the sign of protection over his chest. "A vampire," he whispered. It was enough. Cassandra and Ramon sought out the one group who would listen to such madness. The Hunters Guild, a secret organization that spent centuries tracking, killing, and capturing supernatural creatures. When the hunters heard about a human girl disappearing into shadows with a silver-eyed man, their commander's expression turned sharp. "The king of the bloodborne has taken a mortal bride," he said. "This is an opportunity and a threat." Cassandra leaned forward eagerly. "I want her back. That girl owes me everything." Ramon smirked. "And I want the king dead." The hunters exchanged ruthless smiles. "Then we have a common purpose." Back in Umbereth, Isla continued exploring the kingdom, trying to understand its people. She noticed how every vampire, even the lowest servant, carried centuries of pride, yet deep fear of their king. She also noticed something else. The realm felt unstable. The glowing veins in the walls flickered at random. Servants whispered about rising tensions. Vampires who hated humans had begun gathering in secret, and the council seemed angrier every day. One night, Lucian found Isla sitting alone on a balcony overlooking the crimson rivers. He approached quietly, though his presence always felt like a shift in the air. "You're troubled," he said. Isla didn't look at him. "Your people hate me." Lucian sighed softly. "They do not understand you. They fear change." Isla hugged her knees. "Why does everything come down to fear? Humans fear vampires, vampires fear humans, everyone fears something." Lucian sat beside her, his cold aura strangely comforting. "Fear is born when people see power they cannot control," he said. "But you," he paused, searching her face, "your power is not strength or blood. It is your heart. That is what they fear most. Isla blinked. My heart? Lucia nodded. Kindness breaks the chains that darkness loves. You threaten their way of life simply by being gentle. Isla didn't know what to say. She looked down at the glowing rivers, unsure whether she should be flattered or terrified. Lucian continued, I know this world is new and frightening, but you are not alone. His voice softened. I will protect you. But even Lucian's protection could not stop what was coming. 2 nights later, alarms erupted through the kingdom, low, vibrating bells that echoed off the cavern walls. Isla jolted awake. In seconds, Lucian appeared at her bedroom door, eyes glowing like molten silver. Stay behind me, he commanded, but Isla grabbed his arm. What's happening? Hunters, he growled, voice dripping with fury. Human hunters, armed, inside Umbereth. Isla's heart froze. Humans? Here? But how? Lucian's jaw tightened. Someone guided them. Someone opened a passage. Betrayal hung heavy in the air. Isla followed Lucian through the halls as vampires rushed past them, preparing for battle. The ground trembled with footsteps and magic, the glowing veins dimmed, the air tasted of danger. When they reached the main gates, Isla gasped. Hunters had broken through, wearing dark armor, carrying silver weapons glowing with lethal enchantments, and at their front, Cassandra and Raymond. Cassandra's eyes widened when she saw Isla beside Lucian. You little wretch! You think you can run from me? From your duty? Raymond sneered. Look at you, dressed like a queen among monsters. Isla flinched as painful memories clawed back. But before she could speak, Lucian stepped forward with a cold fury she had never seen before. You dare enter my realm. You dare bring weapons into my halls. You dare threaten my wife? His last words shook the cavern. Cassandra's smile was wicked. She's mine. I raised her. I decide her fate. No, Isla whispered, stepping out from behind Lucian. You controlled me. You hurt me. And now, I'm not yours anymore. Cassandra's face twisted in rage. Raymond raised his blade. This ends tonight. Lucian's eyes glowed brighter. Yes, he said quietly, it does. 2 worlds, human cruelty and vampire darkness, were about to collide. And Isla, fragile but brave, stood at the center.
The justice of 2 worlds. The cavern rumbled as the humans and hunters advanced, their silver blades glowing with cold, deadly light. The vampires formed a protective arc behind Lucian, their eyes sharp, their fangs bared. Isla stood in the center of both sides, her heart pounding like a trapped bird. Raymond pointed his weapon at her chest, his face twisted with bitter pride. Come here, Isla. You belong to me. Cassandra's voice slithered out next, poisonous and cold. You think this creature is your husband? You think these monsters care about you? You are nothing without me. Nothing. Isla felt her breath tremble, but she did not step back. Something deep inside her, something she had buried for years, rose up with a strength she didn't recognize. She lifted her chin. You never raised me. You used me. Cassandra laughed harshly. You ungrateful little brat. I fed you. I clothed you. You owe me your life. Isla shook her head slowly. My father gave me life. You gave me chains. Cassandra's fist twisted with fury. She lunged forward, but before she could reach Isla, a gust of freezing wind blasted through the cavern as Lucian materialized in front of her. His voice was deathly calm. Touch her again, and you will not leave this realm alive. Raymond snarled. She is human, a fragile little toy. Why defend her? Lucian's eyes glowed silver, so bright that the hunter stepped back in fear. Because she is mine, he said, his voice echoing like thunder. "Not my servant, not my possession, my equal, my queen." Gasps rippled across both sides. Even Ela felt her heart stop for a moment. Cassandra spat at the ground. "You think she matters? She's weak." Ela stepped forward before Lucian could respond. "I may be weak," she said softly, "but not as weak as a woman who hurts a child to feel strong." Cassandra's rage boiled over. "Enough!" she screamed. "Hunters, take her!" Chaos exploded. Hunters charged, raising silver blades. Vampires moved just as fast, shadows swirling behind them like living darkness. Lucian leaped forward, deflecting a silver spear so fast the air cracked. The blow would have killed Ela instantly. He spun the weapon aside, grabbed the hunter by the throat, and threw him into a stone pillar hard enough to make the cavern shake. Raymond lunged at Ela, blade raised, aiming straight for her heart. She stumbled backward, terror burning through her, but before the blade touched her, Lucian was there again, faster than lightning, catching Raymond's arm in midair. His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "Touch her again, and I will tear you apart." Raymond grinned, spitting in Lucian's face. "Do it, monster." Lucian's grip tightened, and for a moment Ela thought he would kill him, but something inside her sparked. She stepped forward, touching Lucian's arm. "Lucian, don't," she whispered. "Let him face justice, real justice." Lucian froze, his eyes flickering with conflict. Slowly he released Raymond, who stumbled back, sneering. Across the cavern, Cassandra was shouting at the hunters to fight harder. She swung a dagger toward Ela, but a wall of shadow surged up around the girl, blocking the attack. Lucian didn't move, but the shadows obeyed him anyway. Cassandra screamed in frustration. "Why won't you come back with me? I made you who you are!" Ela stared at her with sadness deeper than anger. "Yes," she said softly, "you did. You made me someone who knows exactly what cruelty is, so now I know exactly what kindness feels like." Cassandra hesitated, confusion flickering in her eyes. For a moment Ela saw not a monster, but a broken woman who could not bear to have someone defy her. But the moment vanished when Cassandra lifted her dagger again. "You will obey me!" She shrieked. Something inside Ela snapped, not fear, but strength. She stepped forward boldly, her voice clear. "No, I will never obey you again." Power, strange, cold, awakening, rushed through Ela's veins, the same energy she had felt the night of the blood vow. The cavern lights flickered. Ela gasped as her vision sharpened, her heartbeat slowed, and the world fell into silent clarity. Lucian's eyes widened. "Your blood," he whispered, "it is awakening." Ela didn't understand, but she raised a hand instinctively, and the shadows responded. Cassandra froze as black tendrils lifted around Ela like swirling smoke. Not dangerous, not violent, just protective. "You cannot hurt me anymore," Ela said, strangely steady. "Your power over me is gone."
Fear, finally, truly entered Cassandra's eyes, and for the first time in her life she realized Isla was no longer her victim. Raymond tried to run, but vampires blocked every exit. Hunters surrendered as Lucian stepped forward, his presence overwhelming the cavern. He lifted his hand, summoning a crown-shaped ring of shadow behind him, symbol of absolute authority. "You entered my realm," he said to Cassandra and Raymond, "seeking to steal what is mine. You brought hunters. You brought chaos." His voice deepened. "For these crimes, judgment is mine." Cassandra fell to her knees, trembling. Raymond glared defiantly, but even he was shaking. Lucian's eyes glowed so bright they illuminated the whole cavern. "You wished to take a queen," he said coldly. "Instead, you will face a fate befitting your cruelty." He stepped back, turning to Isla. The judgment belongs to her. The cavern fell silent. Isla's breath trembled. She had never been given power before, never been asked what she wanted, never had a voice. She looked at Cassandra, ugly with fear and anger. She looked at Raymond, seething with hatred, the hunters, confused and frightened. And she finally understood something. Mercy wasn't weakness, it was strength. Isla lifted her chin. "I don't want bloodshed," she said. "I don't want anyone to die." Cassandra looked shocked. Raymond sneered. But Isla continued, her voice clearer. "But I want justice." She pointed at Raymond. "You will never harm another girl again. You will return home and answer for every crime you committed. Lucian will make sure the world knows who you truly are." Raymond paled as two vampires seized him, dragging him away. Isla then faced Cassandra. "And you," she whispered. Cassandra flinched as if struck. "You will leave me alone forever. You will never speak my name again." Cassandra opened her mouth to protest, but the shadows surged between them, sealing the vow. Her fate was decided. Her power over Isla shattered like glass. Lucian stepped forward, eyes softening. "Isla," he murmured, "you chose mercy, even when no one expected it." Isla looked down, exhausted but relieved. "Cruelty made me small," she whispered. "Mercy makes me free." Lucian's expression warmed, truly warmed for the first time. Slowly he took her hand. "Then let your freedom be your crown." The vampires lowered their heads in respect. For the first time, they saw not a human girl, but a queen chosen by destiny. Isla turned to Lucian, her voice soft. "So, what happens now?" Lucian lifted her hand gently, bringing it to his chest. "Now," he said, "you rule beside me, not in fear, not in shadows, but in the light you carry." Somewhere deep in the realm, the glowing veins brightened, for the first time in centuries. The kingdom breathed again, and Isla, once a broken girl controlled by cruelty, became the queen who changed two worlds, not with power, but with kindness.